So welcome to day 19 of the Kickstart Your Running in 21 Days project. I really hope you enjoyed yesterday's session on creating intentions and that it gave you some ideas of how to incorporate that into your life. Today's activity and session is going to be all about acceptance, which is something that we probably all struggle with in different ways as runners, and certainly I have. So before we get going, I wanted to share the serenity prayer with you. And many of you probably know this, but I think it's worth revisiting again because it has an important message. Oh God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that has a really important message for us, that acceptance is something that is, it is a struggle sometimes to accept that this is where I am. This is who I am now. This is where my training is now. This isn't where I wanted to be, but this is where I am. So I wanted to share with you an experience that I had April 2013. I was coming back from a run and I was finished the run. I was literally walking to my car, went to put my right foot down on what I thought was water, and it turned out to be black ice. My foot slipped underneath me and I landed full body weight on my right hip, and the impact broke my right femur, which is not a course of action I recommend for anybody. It's one of the most painful things I've ever experienced, and it also kind of interrupted my running a little too. But what happened after the surgery? So I had the surgery one night in hospital, and then came home, and it was probably a mixture of trauma, shock. Like this wasn't expected in any shape or form. But what happened was I found my attention and my focus seesawing between the past and the present. So I found myself going back and giving myself a really hard time about having done it. It's like, you've seen black ice before, come on. It's like, this is not your first time. And then I'd swing forwards to, I can't wait for this to be finished, and I want to get back to running again. And I spent several days kind of seesawing between these two extremes. And what I realized was that basically I wasn't accepting what had happened. And what I also realized was that the most important thing for me in this situation was that I needed to heal. And healing only happens in the present. It doesn't take place in the past or the future. And so I really needed to be present and be here now in order for me to maximize my chance of healing and getting stronger and getting back to running again. And so from that point onwards, I put myself through a daily imagery session where I was imagining my femur, literally the two pieces of femur that were put back together again. I had 3 screws holding them together, and I literally imagined the 2 pieces of the femur knitting together and making new cells. Yeah? And that was a really powerful way for me to get engaged in my healing, but it was also a really great way to focus on, I had to accept this. You know, it's like I had an X-ray which showed that my femur was in 2 pieces and then 3 screws holding it together. So it's like acceptance was a really critical part of my healing process here. And I think it really taught me a lesson and has encouraged me to be much more focused and much more present as a human being. So it was like, it was a horrible thing to go through, but at the same time it was a gift, because that gift helped me in a way that nothing else that I've really experienced in terms of my running, my training, has helped me to do. And of course, the other beauty is that I was able to return to running. And so my femur healed up nicely, the blood supply back to the head of the femur healed up. So everything's working well, and I'm very, very grateful that the surgery went well. I had a good friend of mine who was my surgeon, and he did an amazing job, although he said that it was really down to the bits of bone. As like he was able to put them back together again pretty neatly. So that was, I hope, a really good example of acceptance. I mean, it might be a little bit extreme, perhaps, but might relate to different things that have happened to you that you've struggled with in terms of acceptance. So today's activity is, I'd like you to think of something in your recent past where you struggled to accept whatever it is. And I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find something that is running related in some way. This is something we often come up against as runners in different shapes and forms. So with whatever you've thought in mind, I'd like you to hold that thought, and then we'll prepare to get relaxed now. So as usual, make sure your phone ring is turned off. You know you're not going to be disturbed, and get yourself settled into a comfortable chair or a sofa, or maybe a space on the floor or your bed. And then just get ready now to get comfortable and get relaxed. So then once you're ready, once you're comfortable, we're going to start by taking, as usual, 3 big deep breaths. And then allow your eyes to gently close, and just notice as your body relaxes how you just kind of sink a little bit into the chair or the floor or the sofa or the bed underneath you. And then turn your attention to your breathing. So we're going to count each in-breath as 1, each out-breath as 1, count up to 10, and then start over again. And cycle through that 4 or 5 times. Now bring the memory back into your imagination of a situation where you struggled to accept something, whatever it was. And then recreate this in as much detail as you can in your imagination. So, who was there? What was happening? What were the interactions that you took part in? What were you hearing? Did you feel anything up against your skin at that time? Did you notice anything that you were touching, or you were being touched, or whatever was happening? And then, was there any smells? Were there any smells that are associated with this interaction, with this situation? And lastly, was there any tastes? So, had you just had a beer, or, or some wine, or maybe a bar or something? And then lastly, how were you feeling emotionally? So how did this impact you as a human being? So how did it impact your heart and soul? Now, instead of struggling to try and accept this, or to try and change whatever it was, then what would have happened? How would you have dealt with it if you had actually been able to find a way to accept this situation? That this is what was happening. You could not change this situation. And now think of how this situation would look if you did find a way. So think and find a way to accept this. And just in your imagination, just go through this exercise and just notice what would happen. And notice how now you have this idea of a way to accept this situation. Then just notice how this changes the interaction. How it changes the dialogue. How it changes your sense of what is happening. And also how it changes your heart and soul. So what's happening to you emotionally? And just notice all those differences. So just play through this situation in your imagination now and just notice all those differences, all those ways that this situation has changed from what you originally experienced to what you're experiencing now. And then maybe think about other situations where you could have dealt with the situation differently and could have used acceptance rather than fought a battle. And inevitably we all have something that will crop into our mind. And then bring your attention back to the present and just be aware of your sit bones or the points of contact between your body and the chair or the floor or the sofa or your bed underneath you. And then we're going to take 3 big deep breaths. And then whenever you're ready, gently open your eyes and bring your attention back into wherever you are. And take a stretch and maybe give yourself a hug of acceptance. Like, you're okay. Or in this case, I'm okay. All right, congratulations on completing day 19. I hope you found this activity on acceptance useful. And yeah, make any notes that you recall from this activity, this session, and make any notes in your notebook or journal. And yeah, look out for day 20 coming next tomorrow. And we're almost at the end now. I think there's only this session plus 2 more. So thank you for coming on this journey with me. I really hope you found it worthwhile. And while I think of it, a shout out for the Frost Giant. Takes place, there's a 5K and 10K race, and you can do both races on the same day, January the 27th up here in Estes Park. And if you Google Frost Giant 5K or 10K on, or search on Facebook, then it's got information and registration and all that kind of thing there. And we'd love to have you come and run. And one of the taglines for the race is, "We run whatever the weather." And it used to be held in like snow and ice and wind and all kinds of stuff. But in more recent years, then it's been shorts and a t-shirt. But I'm making no promises. I haven't seen the weather forecast that far ahead yet. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you being a part of this project, and look forward to seeing you for day 19. And peace and love.